to Paddlecast with Betsy
and Billy. On Paddlecast, we talk to and about paddlers who are pushing the limits, paddlers who are pushing their own limits and pushing the limits of paddle sports.
We are starting today's news with stand-up paddleboarding. So last weekend was the World SUP Festival Costa Blanca in Santa Pola in Spain. This was the penultimate race in what has been called the biggest 6 weeks of SUP racing that the world has ever seen. That's at least according to Mike Euger of Stand Up Magazine. But it is a massive, massive 6 weeks with racing all over Europe, all over the Mediterranean, the Atlantic. And next weekend is going to be the final race of this sort of 6-week period, the spring season, which is the Barcelona World SUP Festival. Most of the paddlers who we have just seen race in Santa Pola will be sticking around in Spain for the Barcelona World SUP Festival, and it's looking like it is going to be a really, really good weekend of racing. I have just put a full summary on supracer.com if you want to read the article version. On the men's side, it is Shuri Araki, or Shrimpy, who is, I think it's fair to call him the king of SUP. Shrimpy is a free agent this year. So he has been with Flying Fish Puerto for the last couple of years and has now got his own custom board designed by his dad. And Shrimpy won both the technical and long distance races in Santa Pola. I think the fact that these races have been on the sea with some waves and occasionally some decent downwind conditions has been a pretty good advantage to him. As much as he really needed an advantage, he probably didn't need that much of an advantage knowing Shrimpy, but he is definitely a strong ocean paddler. He knows how to catch the bumps, and he's been making the most of it. Behind Shrimpy at Santa Pola, we had Aaron Sanchez in both the technical and distance. So Shrimpy, of course, hails from Japan. Aaron Sanchez is one of the Spanish paddlers. He's another paddler who knows the waves really well and was able to make the most of those conditions on the technical and distance races both. So you can rewatch the technical race where, particularly towards the second half of that, Aaron Sanchez manages to start really catching those waves, pushing onto the bumps, and uses those to overtake some of the other paddlers. It was a really strong field, and that's how he sort of managed to grab that second place position behind Shrimpy. I did mention Fernando Pimenta and Donato Friends last week, who are both having really strong spring seasons. They didn't quite make the top 3 in Santa Pola, which was very competitive, but it's still definitely a couple of paddlers to watch out for in Barcelona. It was in third place in the technical race, Christian Andersen from Denmark. He is currently leading the European SUP League, so he's had a lot of sort of top 3 and top 5 results so far this season, which has put him in the lead of that league. And in the long distance race, it was Arthur Arupkin, who is representing France, but he lives in Chile right now, who finished in that third place in the long distance race. The technical racing on the men's side was not tight at the start because we had Shrimpy really far and away in first, but it was tight behind him, and it was so tight that Bodie Van Almen actually jumped across the line. We'll see if we can include that video here.
Yeah, he wanted that, didn't he?
He did. You got to respect the commitment to just absolutely throw your body in the sand across that finish line.
I'm really curious about Shrimpy's board, so I'm going to look into that. I'm guessing it's less volume?
I would guess that because of his size as well. So he's only 5'3", obviously where the name Shrimpy comes from, alliterative with Shuri. And he's a lot smaller than some of his competition. So he's an entire foot smaller than Donato Friends from the Netherlands, who's 6'3". And a lot of the boards, I think, tend to be made for taller, heavier paddlers. So yeah, my guess is that the new custom board that his father has designed is probably made to suit a lower volume paddler with a smaller stature. He does have a pretty quick stroke rate, right? Especially when he's catching those bumps. So maybe it's designed a bit to help with that. I don't know
Yeah.
if he sort of released the details of what's making his new custom board so effective for him, but clearly it's working.
Well, I'm going to have a look and see.
Yeah, I think and it's cool to see innovation coming from the family, right? We've got so
Yeah.
many big board companies that are out there producing great boards, but the family of one of the top paddlers can still hop into the mix and innovate something that seems to be working.
Yeah, that's very cool. I watched some of the women's racing, and it looks like Mariecarmen's still dominating.
She has just been brilliant. So the big question for Mariecarmen this year is if she can finally get a world championship title. She has come so close to this, and it is just barely out of her grasp so far. So at this point in the season, I think she is probably going out as hard as she can to set herself up to take that world title later in the year. So she's had a phenomenal season so far. She's had a ton of wins across a lot of these races in this 6 week period. Definitely in the long distance category, her biggest competition is Esperanza Barreras from Spain. Mariecarmen is from Puerto Rico. Spain is far and away the strongest country for SUP generally, but particularly in the women's category because you have Esperanza Barreras or Espe, Duna Gordillo, and Alba Frey, who are all right there up at the top. Espe is the reigning world champion in long distance. So she has beat Mariecarmen by less than 2 seconds at the World Championships for the ISA in Denmark, and then by 4 seconds in long distance at the ICF World Championships in the US in Sarasota. So, like, literally 2 seconds and 4 seconds. Espe has
Yeah.
just edged out Mariecarmen last year. And then Mariecarmen also had something happen during her technical final at the ICF Worlds. You can read about that on SUP Racer as well. There was a bit of drama, there was a disqualification. And so that was, I'm sure, incredibly disappointing for her too, because again, she was coming into that having done really well throughout the season and in the heats and semifinals and everything. And she didn't get the placement that she maybe would have gotten if it had been a completely clean race. It's Duna Gordillo who's actually got the technical world champion title right now from both ISA and ICF world championships. At the racing in Santa Pola, this was the first time that Mariecarmen had directly faced off against Espe this season, because they've essentially just been kind of crossing paths or not crossing paths between, Spain and Greece and the different races. So first time they went head to head in long distance, and Espe pulled it off again. It was the same again. Mariecarmen was leading the race for a huge chunk of it. It was that group of 4 up at the front, the 3 Spaniards and Mariecarmen from Puerto Rico. They just took that win again, sort of in the last moments of the race ahead of Mariecarmen. Really, really cool to watch. And I think in Barcelona this weekend, Mariecarmen is going to be at it again. Espe tends to take a little bit more of a hang back strategic approach on these races, which you can kind of see when you're watching them. She's a really experienced racer. She's been at the top for a while, really knows what she's doing. I think Mariecarmen maybe tends to kind of want to get out front faster. It looks like Espe's strategy is paying off for her. So I will be curious to see if Mariecarmen kind of sticks to her same tactics, or if she maybe tries to change things up and, potentially try and hang back a little bit, let Espe lead, and then try and out Espe. Not sure if that's possible. It'd be fun to see her try. So I'm excited for that rematch. And Mariecarmen did manage to get the first place in the technical racing. It was Alba Frey in second and Duna Gordillo in third behind her, and Espe in fourth. So Mariecarmen still got the win in the technical.
Yeah, that was a good race. She definitely dominated that one. But I'll be watching Barcelona this weekend.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It has been a ton of amazing paddling racing all around the world and across different disciplines lately. I know we have both been all over the first Sprint World Cup of the season and the first of this Olympic cycle How many of those races have you been watching, Billy?
Yeah, I was trying to be a good father this weekend, and the Sprint World Cup sort of put the spanner in the works of that. So yeah, I was trying to watch what I could.
That's all right. He's a fan in the making.
Yeah, maybe. No, it was good. It was a good World Cup.
So this was in Szeged in Hungary. Which how many World Cups have there been in Szeged? It's and World Championships. It's probably one of, if not the best courses for canoe sprint in the world. Hungary is one of the most winningest countries in canoe sprint, both in terms of how Hungary performs on the world stage, as well as within Hungary, canoe sprint is one of their most successful Olympic disciplines and successful sports. We all know you've always got to watch the Hungarians. I think Hungary and Germany largely have been trading off, in terms of who wins the most medals at the Olympics. And Szeged is just an incredible course to be at. They have some of the best sort of camera setup on that course, which is great. It makes for better
Yeah.
footage. They've got really good spectator stands as well. And again, because it's a big deal, the sport's a big deal in Hungary, you get really great crowds who will come out. We are at this stage essentially kicking off the next Olympic cycle for canoe sprint. So we just had the Paris Olympics last August. All of the racers have had some time since then to kind of rest, recuperate, and then start training again for the next 3-4 year Olympic cycle. And this will have been really the first time that they will be on the world stage as a sort of fresh start for the new Olympic cycle. That means that we have some sort of differences in what we'll see compared to other stages of the Olympic cycle. Some racers like Lisa Carrington, who, well, if you don't know Lisa Carrington, you're really missing out. Probably the greatest of all time in canoe sprint. She's got a ton of medals from the Olympics, World Championships. She is almost unbeaten for the last few years. I say almost because it's actually her compatriot Aimee Fisher who beat her a couple of times last year, which is a really big deal. But Lisa Carrington has said publicly that she is not going to be racing internationally this year. She's taking time off not time off from training, but basically time off from international competitions to focus on her training. She's also got some really cool stuff going on. I think she's written a children's book. She's recently bought a women's basketball team. She's got a lot going on, and just because we're not watching her race this year, by LA 2028, we'd have to see something big change to not have her as a gold medal favorite. So Lisa's not there. There's a couple other athletes who are either not didn't race at this World Cup after doing very well in Paris at the Olympics, but a lot of them did attend. And a lot of their goals right now, they may not fully tapered for this event. They may not be in peak form yet. A lot of them might just be focusing on testing out changes, for example, different people in their crew boats, or just focused on getting reps on the international stage.
Yeah, I sort of went into this thinking there's no point in paying much attention to it. I think Dostal had said he's just there, and whatever happens will happen. And I think that's quite a healthy way of looking at it. I also saw that Ekite's Paddle UK head coach said, our season is structured with a clear focus on peaking later in the summer. The World Championships remain our primary target, with European Championships also playing a key role. So GB weren't, really aiming for it. I think many nations were the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Ekite Sayas has come in as the Paddle UK head coach somewhat recently, and a lot of other nations' head coaches will be focused more on, races later in the season rather than sort of the first World Cup. But it does give us kind of a preview into names to watch who maybe otherwise we wouldn't have seen so much of them last year, especially thinking about, how narrowly those Olympic cycles will focus on just the top few athletes. I think what we've seen in this World Cup is athletes who maybe weren't on those teams have now had time to train up and, improve their game ahead of this World Cup and then sort of show up and surprise us a little bit and prove that maybe we need to be looking out for some new names in the new Olympic cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely some surprises there in the women's kayaking. My favorite coming in for both the 500 meter and the 1,000 meter K1 race was Aimee Fisher from New Zealand. So she is pretty much the only paddler who has beaten Lisa Carrington in who knows how long. And she actually finished ahead of her twice at the World Cups last year before Paris. But then, it was the Olympics that Lisa had her sights set on. And Aimee just barely missed out on a medal. She finished fourth in Paris. She's an incredibly determined and persistent paddler. If anything, I think that fourth place finish has shown her, proven to her what she can do on the world stage, on the Olympic stage. And she's come back with a vengeance for LA. So she came in and won the K1 women's 1,000 meter race in the morning. She did have to work pretty hard to win. And it was the Hungarian Zsóka Csikós who made her work really hard for that. And Csikós is one who I would say, if you're not already watching her, you should definitely be paying attention to her. As we said, always watch the Hungarians.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, always.
And Csikós is only 24 years old. She's got several world medals already, but mostly from her junior and under 23 racing in marathon and sprint kayak. And I believe that this silver in the 1,000 meters is her best sprint result in K1 as a senior.
I didn't know that. I had her down as one of the favourites for this race, which maybe I shouldn't have done if I'd have known that she'd not medalled senior. So I think I was expecting more of her.
Yeah, I think she's got a silver in the 5K from a couple of years ago, but
Right,
I think
okay.
that is pretty different than the 500 meter and the 1,000 meter. And of course, the
Yeah.
1,000 meter is not the Olympic distance. It's the 500 that's the Olympic distance. So that is a bit different too, but still.
I was expecting Melina Andersson to win this because of what we sort of said. 1,000 meters isn't the Olympic distance, but then I don't know. It's really early in the season, and if Aimee Fisher's aiming for the 500 at the World Championships, she might just have a bit more base training in the tank early in the season, and therefore be doing a bit better in the 1,000. And as she sharpens up later in the year, she might drop the 1,000 at some later World Cups, World Championships. She might not do it, and to be there for that 500.
I would not be surprised if that's exactly what's going on here. She's more focused on the base training and getting in those reps at the international races.
Yeah.
I would imagine Aimee's probably not too concerned that she didn't medal in the 500 meters this time, given the result that she had in the 1,000 meters. And it was later on in the same day, too, which makes it tough.
Yeah.
It did look like maybe Aimee and Csikós, who both pushed each other really hard in that 1,000 meters, and then both sort of slightly underperformed. Aimee came fourth in the 500 meters and Csikós came ninth in the 500 meters later that day. Probably just tired from how hard they pushed each other in the 1,000 that morning, which again, at this stage, not too concerning for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and just as a point of comparison on how much Csikós has developed over the last couple of years. So at the Szeged World Cup in 2023, she finished seventh in the C final in the K1 500 meters. Now she's just finished ninth in the A final in the K1 500 meters and coming off of the win in the 1,000. So I do think Csikós is really going to be one to watch. As you say, it's not like she's new to this. She's been on the scene. She's a fairly big name in the marathon racing world as well, particularly in the junior and under 23.
Now that's why I had her. I thought she was older. I've noticed her name more, so
you're just early to the
early to the party.
Yeah, and she's got such phenomenal. I think this is a bit of what happens when you're coming out of a country as strong as Hungary, or for example, like Aimee coming out of a program, women's kayak programs as strong as the New Zealand program, you are easily overshadowed by people who are multiple Olympic champions because that's who you're surrounded by. And so you can be a really, really top end paddler, and it's hard to make a name for yourself and stand out above the crowd because it's just the level is so high. A couple other standouts. So Anna Pulawska from Poland won the 500-meter race and the 200-meter race. So in that 500, again, she finished ahead of some of the more recognizable names who we thought maybe would have won that. Anna she's not new to racing. She's 29 years old. She's been doing this for a long time and performing at a really high level. She is actually a 2-time Olympic medalist from Tokyo. She got the silver medal in K2 500 and the bronze medal in K4 500. But even Anna was surprised. So she told the ICF Planet Canoe, she said, quote, "I am really surprised with today's race as it's not my distance, so I am really happy, and it's my first gold medal in 200 meters." And one more to watch is Natalia Drobot from Australia. She is young. She's only 20. And she finished in third in the K1 500 meters behind Anna Pulawska. And the silver there went to Nan Wang from China. Nan Wang is a really high-level paddler. She did well at the Paris Olympics. She's certainly one to watch, but I think, pretty well established on the scene. Natalia Drobot has previously medaled in the 200 and 500 meter races, but she is, she's young, she's less experienced than a lot of her competitors, so she could be another one to watch for this Olympic cycle.
Yeah, my favorite racing of the weekend was the men's 1,000 meter. Yeah, I have got a bit of a soft spot for Hamish Lovemore. He is not traditionally a sprinter. He, is a marathon and surf ski boy. Him and Andrew Burkett took up sprinting just before Paris, really, and gave it a go. And you know what? It's brilliant to watch. Hamish did like a 3:28 in the semi. And I was like, I thought that was pretty good. I thought his semi was going to be the best thing I was going to see all weekend. But then he goes to the A final and just absolutely smashes it. He didn't win. He did get beaten by Kopasz in the end, but I mean, he goes and does a 3:29, and at one point it looked like he was winning with about 250 to go. It looked like he was winning. Kopasz then took the lead, and I think Hamish was coming back in the end. Hamish paddles on 740 blades, so 740 centimeters square, which is much smaller than most of these other paddlers. Most of them will be on 800s to 820s. He must catch the water really well to make use of those blades. But it wasn't all about Hamish. I know I'm going on about him. Dostal was there. Dostal came third. Really interesting. The commentator, with about 500 at halfway, Dostal was barely in the screen. And, he said, Dostal's the one that everyone will still be concerned about. And he came through and got third. Finished really strong. And he has said, he's just enjoying kayaking at the moment. This is not his main focus. So he's just about to be a father with Anna Puladova. So, that's cool. It's got a really healthy attitude to that. And I suppose being the Olympic champion, you can get away with having that attitude, can't you? Possibly the surprise was Pimenta. Coming last in that A final. He was at the Portuguese Marathon Nationals the week before, so I don't think he'd be tired. He's a top class athlete. He'd recover from that. Maybe he just didn't feel it in the end and decided to save it for another time. The standard of that A final was rammed. It was really good. Tom Green was in there, the Australian multiple medal winner. Great final. Great one to watch.
Yeah, the level was incredible. And over the 1,000 meters, you have enough time over that distance that you do see those positions change around a little bit more than we typically see in the 200 or the 500. And especially with someone like Dostal, like you say, where he starts his strategy by, hanging back, conserving his energy, and then really making a push for the end. That was great. Hamish Lovemore, I think he shocked everyone. I think definitely like biggest surprise of the weekend. Maybe not for us, and I feel like you might be captain of the Hamish Lovemore fan club, which rightfully so, especially coming out of this weekend. But really, really great to see, and Balint Kopasz like really had to push to get that win ahead of Hamish Lovemore,
Yeah.
and it was, I mean, just so close, so close. If you're gonna watch one race from the weekend, that men's K1 1,000-meter final is probably the one to watch.
The only thing that Hamish might need to do, and this is coming from someone who's nowhere near the standard of his paddling, is I believe his PB might be like a 328. Can he get that down to the 325s? I don't know. But he's got a really healthy attitude to his paddling. He's like, I'm not going to Poznan. He's flying home to do the marathon selection race, marathon nationals in South Africa, and then he's going to the World Games.
Seeing athletes who are balancing multiple disciplines and racing at the highest level possible across those
Yeah.
multiple disciplines, it does seem like it only helps.
My other favorite race was the men's K4 500, which is always a good race, really tight across the front four. Hungary won ahead of Germany and Spain. It was perhaps a bit of a surprise. The German boat had three of last year's Olympic winning crew.
It's not surprising to see that rivalry between Hungary and Germany. Germany has come out on top in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if Germany kind of comes back for more. But
Yeah,
the Hungarian depth is just so strong.
it's scary, isn't it? I am not one to talk, but did you see the picture of the German K4 with the number 4 seat out of time?
I did notice that as well.
I have got a feeling that German WhatsApp groups right now, all of his mates will probably be tearing into him. But I'm not one to talk, so pot kettle.
That's true. I've got enough photo evidence of you in exactly that
Yeah.
position in the K2s. That's what these crews will be doing right now, though, is they're up there racing internationally for the first time as a foursome. It's not going to go perfectly, but they've got a few years to get that timing perfect. So we'll do a quick overview of the canoeing as well. So the men's canoe, mostly, I think some of the names we would have expected to see. It was Martin Fuchse who won the 1,000-meter race, which is the Olympic distance. One call out was Casadei Gabriele from Italy, who finished in second place behind Fuchse. And a lot of Gabriele's international results, his best results are in C2. So really exciting for him to have that silver in the C1. And Ezequias Quiros from Brazil, who of course is a multiple Olympic medalist, didn't have a great day in the 1,000 meters. So he seemed a little bit off, like we said about Fernando Pimenta. Even the best athletes have bad days. And Adam Varga, I think, suffered from that too. He didn't perform as well in the 1,000 as we expected, but again, he may have just been having a bad day. But Ezequias did managed to pull off a win in the 500 meters. So he did get some redemption there, which was great to see in the canoeing side. And in the women's canoe, we saw the Hungarian C2 of Kis Nagy win the C2 500-meter race. We saw another paddler who had a little bit of a bad day, which is Yaroslavs Dubois from Cuba. She missed out on the A final, but then made up for it when she won the B final. So probably a little bit disappointing for her, but again, we're still at the beginning of the Olympic cycle. She's done really well in the last couple of Olympics, so she's still one to watch. One really big surprise for me was Victoria Yarchevska from Spain, who came out really strong in the 200-meter A final and took that lead and kept it by a really clear margin. The 200-meter C1 women's race was unbelievably tight at the Paris Olympics, and you expect really, really close racing. But Yarchevska had a really clear win. And she also got third place with Maria Marino in the C2 500-meter race. So Yarchevska seems like she's one to watch. And Katie Vincent is your reigning Olympic champion in women's C1, of course. Katie Vincent from Canada. but she actually missed out on a podium spot. So a bit surprising there, but again, it's, we could just see that these top paddlers maybe are not in top form right now, and they'll be focused more on the latter half of the season. Looking ahead to next weekend in Poland, we'll have the second World Cup in Poznan. This course is also well trodden, but maybe not quite so much as Szeged, and it can be windy at times. We did actually see that the course in Szeged got pretty windy, especially towards the end of the racing on the last day for a number of the finals and for the 5K race. So we could have some challenges with that in Poznan as well, but that remains to be seen. It looks like some of the top names from Szeged will be racing again in Poznan. We will be watching out for Aimee Fisher again in the women's K1. And Poznan will also feature the para-canoe races for the first time this season, which is going to be really exciting. And we will have some Olympic medalists from Paris racing in Poznan in para-canoe. Including from the UK, Charlotte Henshaw and Hope Gordon look like they are signed up to race. So really looking forward to watching that as well. So Billy, I know we've talked to a few athletes already this season who are gearing up for the Sella in Spain, the big descent race later this year in August, including yourself. But you said that there was a couple of sort of like pre races that happened on the same river in Spain over the weekend.
Yeah, there were a couple of little warm-up races. I would imagine they're very similar to something like what the junior Liffey used to be for the Liffey, where it's, sort of on the same river, just gives people a chance to try out the the course or similar conditions. There were two races on the same river as the Sella Descent. It gives people a chance to try out similar conditions, both on brilliant moving water, nice drops, fast rapids. The races, I think, have been benefiting from the rain that Spain has been having, whilst Northern Europe has had one of the driest springs in record. The first on the Saturday was the 49th Pilona Sella. This is known for its passage through Soto de Dunes, which is a great looking drop. It looks to be over 2 meters high, very shallow on the bottom, and sort of two-stepped. So you have to shoot at an angle to save the bow. Both K1 and K2 have to do this. It's not an easy drop. The closest comparison that UK people might have would be Luke and Weir on the Liffey. But Soto de Dunas looks trickier to me. Hopefully we can link you a video. On the Sunday, we had the 60th Alto Sella, which was held between the villages of Cangas de Onis and Ariondas, which is actually the start of the Sella Descent. This race has an awesome feature at the Golonda Rosso Rapids. It's a great rapid. It looks really challenging for sort of your average paddler. Like, loads of care needs to be taken up the top to get your line right. It looks like there's plenty of opportunity to wrap your boat here if you get it too wrong. I would sort of say that this is starting to be the type of rapid where you really might be needing to use draw strokes as opposed to just steering. And just in case anyone isn't quite familiar with what I'm saying, a lot of weirs you can steer down and you just point and shoot. Whereas this sort of stuff, rapids, it looks more like sort of stuff people get in, obviously in Spain, but also in South Africa. So if anyone's not sort of familiar with why you'd use a draw stroke on a weir or a rapid, once you start using, if you use your rudder too much, you end up actually just turning the back of the boat, and actually it can then mean that you introduce the rock to the back of the boat and gives you a greater chance of wrapping the boat. And if you need to change the angle on more complex rapids, you have to use some draw strokes from the bow. Much like you'd be more familiar with seeing the bow paddler in a like an OC6 or OC4 doing in the surf, actually, which we were talking about last week.
Yeah, or in a C2 in a marathon canoe.
Yeah. So the results of these two Spanish races, The Pelona Sella was won by Kiko Vega and Javier Sanchez Garcia. They're both former Sella champions in K1. They were closely followed by Milin Lamedo and Manuel Garacoche. And apologies for butchering your names. They actually had a swim at the Soto Dunas Dam. So it'd be interesting if we can see that on video because, like I said, it is a tricky drop. Third place in the K2 category went to Pedro Gutierrez and Tomas Pereyuro. Abel Garcia won both races in K1.
I know, Billy, we both tried to find the women's results and unfortunately haven't been able to find anything online. So
we'd love to give them a shout out.
Well, I think that wraps our race recaps. And there is one upcoming very big race in the surf ski world that we wanted to do a quick preview of. And that is the Molokai, or the Kaiwi Channel race. Probably one of the most challenging ocean races in the world. The surf ski version of it is coming up soon.
Yeah, so the Molokai is on Sunday. Used to be known, it probably still is known as the unofficial World Championships. Surf ski does now have an official World Championship. So Corey Hill and Anne Carnes are the reigning champions in single surf skis. Corey is building up a nice collection of wins now. He's on 4, but it's got some way to matching the 12 of Oscar Chalupski. I mean, you can have a multitude of different conditions now. Actually, Corey's last post on Instagram was that he's now just checking the weather. You know, he was on windy nonstop. But generally, this gives great surf ski conditions, you know, good downwinds. Your race is going to be made on your downwind lines and your pre-race research. And competitors rely heavily on their escort boats to give them information on where their rivals are going when the race splits up, which it inevitably does. So May the 25th, that's Sunday for most of us. I think it's early hours of Monday morning for Australia. All eyes in the surf ski world will be on it, and I can't wait to review this next week.
Same here. Molokai is just one of the most epic races and courses out there. The paddlers cross from the west coast of Molokai to Oahu. And there's versions there's an outrigger race, a surf ski race, a SUP and SUP foil race. And anytime these paddlers are out there, it's just phenomenal to watch. And as you say, it's definitely one where it's really about reading the waves, finding the right lines. The outrigger version of Molokai happened just the other day, and it was Kristen Foster who won the women's race again. She's a local Hawaii paddler, so you can kind of see for her it's certainly an advantage being a local paddler. She finished ahead of Aloha Aishen, who we've talked about a few times in multiple paddle sports, who's used to being right up at the front of races. So it's notable that Aloha finished in third, because it really does make such a difference having that knowledge. But Corey has won the race so many times before.
Yeah, he really knows the course. He largely bases, a large amount of his season around this race. He did a really good interview on the Boothcast where he talks about his Molokais. Obviously, both of them being Molokai races. It's a serious part of the surf ski calendar. It's something I'd love to try and do one year. It's obviously on the other side of the planet, and I'd have to sharpen up some of my skills to do it. But maybe not ruling it out.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all the news we've got for you all today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you are following SUP Racer, Paddle Daily, and Billy Likes Kayaking on social media for more from myself and Billy, more paddling all the time. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. See you on the water.
See you on the water.
I did one time introduce the side of my boat to a rock, and it was not a happy introduction.
Yeah, I nearly wrapped the boat in the jungle last year on the Liffey. We were going through the jungle in a group of 4, and I thought I was being really clever jumping on the side wash, and then I very nearly ended up wrapping the boat there.